Welcome back to the grind for another Act 7.3 guide. This is quest number 2, another easy path option with Pleasure to Burn and God of Light. So you will not be dealing normal damage unless you are incinerating the opponent, but because of God of Light, any champion has a chance on hit to apply an incinerate. When you knock down the opponent, they're going to become immune to debuffs, so that's going to remove all the incinerate. So you want champions that can do lots of damage without relying on knocking the opponent down. There's also incinerate vulnerability, so not only are you going to get your normal damage from having an incinerate on, you're going to be dealing increased damage, and your incinerates are going to be dealing more damage. So you want to have champions that can have easy access to incinerates so that when you do knock them down, you can put them back on, or champions that don't rely on knocking the opponent down and don't rely on the last hit of their heavy attack for the major damage output. So Human Torch, you can see here, is doing quite well. He has very easy access to incinerates, and he gets most of his damage from incinerates. And against the Mystics on this path, or energy damage champions on this path, Human Torch will be fantastic. So you can see here, this combo, we're going to do a few rounds of basic attacks here. We're going to get our Nova Flame on, and the damage just gets crazy, and we start to melt her down very fast, ending the fight in 34 hits. Now the next fight on this path, we're going to be going up against Corvus Glaive. Now this, I wanted to show that you can brute force with any champion, and Sasquatch is my newest rank 2. Actually not anymore, but one of my newest rank 2 champions, so I wanted to give him a try. Unfortunately, Sasquatch does rely on knocking the opponent down to with the special 1 to kind of build up rupture debuffs, and that results in you losing all your debuffs, and therefore you do not want to do that. So what I had to do is hope for good luck in getting a decent number of rupture debuffs with building up to my special 2, and also having an incinerate on the opponent before I throw off my special 2, but this did not always work out very well. We are going to see a few times where we get, or a couple times where we get some decent damage. Now we've got our incinerate going, we've got a few ruptures built up. We're going to build up to our special 2 and launch that with 5 rupture debuffs, and we get some decent damage. Unfortunately, no crit, and you see the last hit of the special attack does not do much damage because the removal of the debuff is activating prior to the actual damage, unfortunately. But here we're going to get some nice damage from this special 2 as well, with a nice crit on the first hit, and then again you can see that last hit not doing damage. So we're not going to show that whole fight because it did take a little while. And the next fight, I brought in Angela to go up against Darkhawk to counter the auto block. And because Angela does not rely on knocking the opponent down for the damage, her basic attacks just deal a bunch of damage. And since you can trigger, once again, the incinerates on chance, once you get them on, you are dealing some decent damage with Angela, but you can't do her regular heavy attack rotation as you just saw, because that will knock the opponent down and remove the incinerate debuff. The thing to keep in mind is if you do end up using your special attacks in order to get your power down so you can build up Furies again, you just have a little bit of a downtime where your damage isn't that great. So you see here I threw off the special 3. Now he is immune to debuffs for a bit, but now we can go back in and start building up the incinerates again, and it's not too bad. However, with Darkhawk, you want to try to avoid pushing him to a special 2, because otherwise you have all this time where you have to waste, since you can't reliably hit the opponent, and therefore it just kind of drags out the fight. But Angela is a great option. She's very reliable, she's very sustainable. You just have to be sure not to knock the opponent down too frequently. One other thing to consider is, because of Redoubled Determination, if you throw off a special attack and apply the armor break debuffs, each hit of that special attack before the last hit is going to occur with the armor breaks active, and Redoubled Determination increases the damage per debuff, increases the power gain the opponent gets per debuff on the opponent, and with armor breaks it's actually doubled, with bleeds and poisons as well. So you want to avoid champions that frequently or rely on bleeds, poisons, and armor break debuffs for their damage or as a big part of their rotation. You want to reliably avoid those buffs as much as possible. So we're not going to watch the entire fight there either, because it did take some time. Now Falcon is not the best option for this path, and you'll see why shortly, but I brought him for this path to hopefully decrease some of the annoyingness of Invisible Woman. However, the damage is not actually bad when you are attacking in and triggering those incinerates, but you do not want to knock the opponent down, and you do not want to trigger your lock-on state, because once you trigger lock-on, you're going to decrease the ability accuracy that you get for triggering an incinerate on the opponent. So you won't be able to trigger an incinerate if you have locked on to the opponent, which is going to mean you can't really deal any damage. So now you can see we triggered it, and I was hoping to kind of chain that special 2 after locking on while we had an Incinerate to get some decent damage off that special 2, but unfortunately I mistimed it and it went into the block. The other thing too is the last hit is the main damage dealer, and you're not going to get damage off of that last hit of the special attack. The other thing you could try doing is throwing off your special 3, but unfortunately that knocks down the opponent and you lose the Incinerate. So it was a bit of a long fight without lock on, but it actually was fairly good. But really any skill champion that doesn't bleed or armor break or poison, not sure if there even is one, would be great. Now Sunspot has access to Incinerates as well and can do some high damage with his special attacks, and so he's an okay option as well, but again, he doesn't have high damage Incinerates, so you're not getting much benefit from that Pleasure to Burn node. And then one thing you do want to keep in mind here is the last hit of his special 2 is what deals the most damage, and you're not going to be dealing much damage with that last hit because once again, that's the knockdown part of the special attack, and so it removes all the Incinerates and you don't get the damage. But when you do build up, you do get some nice numbers off the first few hits, but there you can see again, the damage is quite small from that last hit. Then I went in to Yellow Jacket because I had a nearly full health Sunspot, and I made a big mistake attacking into him like this while he had that damage reflection state going on. So learn from my mistakes and don't do that. But I finished it off pretty easily with Angela here. It was not too difficult. So there you can see he gained a lot of power during that special 2 until the last hit where I actually removed those armor break debuffs. So that's what I was talking about. You have to be careful when you apply a bunch of armor breaks because those first 2 hits of the special 2 or the first hit of the special 1, I think it's only 2 hits, will be giving him a lot of power. So you don't want to do that when he's close to 3 bars. So I do hope that this video was helpful. Let me know what champions you use, and I hope to see you in the next video.